So how do heavy things fly? Commercial airplanes and other types of aircrafts weigh a lot, but still are able to fly in the air, so how do they do it? Well, there are four main forces that act on a plane in flight, and it's lift, gravity, thrust, and drag. With lift, there's no exact explanation, with the correct explanation being debated on a lot. The best way to explain lift though is through Bernoulli's principle. In general, lift is mainly generated in the wings, and is done by constructing the airfoil in a way that leaves lower pressure on top and higher pressure below. This happens because air is considered a fluid, meaning it follows Bernoulli's principle, which states how a fluid moving at a higher speed occurs alongside a decrease in pressure. So the top side of the airfoil will have less pressure than the bottom. This imbalance in the air lets the air below the wing push the wing up, which is due to the high pressure zones trying to move into the low pressure zones to equalize the imbalance. Additionally, a thin layer of air sticks to the wing called the boundary layer, which pulls air with it. The airfoil utilizes this by directing the air on top downwards, pushing the air down and also creating lift on the bottom side due to Newton's third law. But why does air move faster over the top side? The reason for this increased speed is due to something called centripetal acceleration. Centripetal acceleration is when something, in this case air, moves in a uniform circular path. During this, it constantly changes the direction of velocity, which means that it's also producing acceleration. This occurs on the top and bottom side of the airfoil because of the curve and also the boundary layer that pulls the air with it. The second most common, but also partially wrong, explanation of lift is based solely on Newton's third law. In this image, there's a downwash visible after the air hits the wing, which means that the bottom side of the wing must be deflecting the air down to create the downwash. And due to Newton's third law, a force then must also be pushing the wing up to create lift. This technically does contribute to lift, but it doesn't explain what happens to the air on the top side of the wing or the pressure differences at all, meaning it's not fully correct. This lift force opposes the gravity force. The gravity force is basically the total weight of the plane, with more things on the plane like people and suitcases contributing to the total weight. And so the amount of total lift calculated must be higher than the amount of total weight of the plane to fly. Commercial airliners mainly use jet engines to create thrust, and the reason for using a jet engine relies primarily on utilizing Newton's third law of how when an action occurs in a direction, an equal and opposite reaction occurs. Jet engines do this by intaking air in from the front, putting them through some complicated combustion mechanism with airways, and exerting them backwards, which then propels itself forward. The inner workings are complicated, but generally the amount of force forward must overcome the drag forces on the plane to go forward. But what are the drag forces? There are multiple types of drag forces on a plane, with varying causes. One main one is parasitic drag, which is the umbrella term for three types of drag and accounts for all forms of drag not created alongside the creation of lift. There are three main types of parasitic drag: form, skin friction, and interference. Form drag is the drag from the air hitting the front cross section of the plane, which is reduced from planes having a curved shape instead of a flat block. Skin friction drag is created from the air particles colliding with the tiny imperfections and bumps on the surface of a plane. To mitigate this, planes are usually given smooth finishes to reduce the amount of bumps. And interference drag, which is when air particles move into a more combined space from moving around parts of the plane that are connected to each other. This happens mostly in corners and points where parts connect, like the plane to the fuselage or the jet engine to the wing. The air compressing together creates more total drag. The other type of drag, not considered parasitic, is induced drag, which is a drag created as a byproduct of lift. Induced drag stems from wingtip vortices, created mainly at the tips of a plane wing, which is a result of air moving in a circular motion around the plane from high to low pressure areas. This creates the downwash of air at the rear of the wing. The average angle of the downwash and the free-flowing air is called effective airflow, which is the angle of air that hits the bottom side of the wing. This airflow generates from Newton's third law as explained before, but due to lift acting perpendicular to the direction of airflow, the lift is being angled rearwards, contributing to the total drag of the plane and being essentially unavoidable. During different stages of flight, there are also wing flaps that are controlled and utilize drag to their advantage. During takeoff, the flaps are around half lowered to increase lift, but not have too much drag. Mid-flight, the flaps aren't deployed as lift is not needed and it minimizes drag. And when landing, flaps are fully down to increase drag and lift to have a slow descent. That's basically how really heavy things like planes are able to fly despite their weight.
Can I scream? Why are the allies inside here?